Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we are talking to someone who did something most people only talk about. He moved from India to Lithuania, entered the industry where he had no established network and built relationships with founders and professionals across the European space ecosystem. In this conversation, we're going beyond space and technology. We'll explore how build visibility when nobody knows you, how to create opportunities from scratch, how content can become a growth engine, and what really takes to build a community around an ambitious idea.
Hi, I'm Girinath Anandhan. I'm a mechatronics engineer and I'm also a CEO and founder of CosmoBuzz Space.
Why did you decide to move to Lithuania at first?
First case, I think my initial plan was to move to Sweden and Poland. Sweden was a little bit expensive for my range at that moment of my life. So then my second option was Poland. I got an offer from Dansk University, but there was like some delays in documentation work, and Lithuania was a little bit quicker. So I was like, why not?
And how do you like it now?
Lithuania still has a lot of space to grow, and there should be a lot of businesses and a lot of people needed for the growth of Lithuania. And I see there's like a space for a lot of growth in the infrastructure of the city itself. City needs metro. City needs more people, more engineers to create a significant difference here.
You mentioned a space, but I want to talk about another type of space. Why did you decide to build a space-oriented company for connected people interested in it instead of another, i.e., startup, agency, or SaaS business?
From 6 years old, I always wanted to be an astronaut. Then eventually the idea evolved, and I'm like, okay, fine, you know what? I should start inspiring people into the industry. I stepped in the industry when I was 16. Then I started working with the space education startup in India, Ramastra. Those guys are really doing amazing right now. And also, then I started collaborating with other agencies like Heroin and few agencies based on Chennai, India. And I'm like, the biggest problem what I found was like people are so disconnected. Also, when I graduated, I applied for a few space companies here in Lithuania and also all across Europe. Like there was not any proper connections for me personally, and also it also comes from a personal frustration. I cannot be complying all the time, so I wanted to make a change in the space industry itself. Do I think space industry has engineers, doctors, or like policymakers and students? Yeah, there are like a lot of amazing people in the space industry, but people are not well connected. So I believe there was like a space to create a social media space where everyone can connect, communicate according to their needs. And that's where CosmoBuzz Clusters was born. So right now, what clusters do is like try to connect engineers, VCs, and also startup founders. So it can be really helpful for their funding, also for the space enthusiastic people, so that they can see what's going on in the space industry in a more technical way. Because LinkedIn is like so broad, we can find people like from a lot of different industries, but not something specific for a space industry. But the concept what I'm trying to build is a forum dedicated just for space, like a social media where people can post about their podcast, their articles in space, the fundings of their startup, and the mentors. Like they can mentor people on whether mentoring students or business owners on what they lack. That's something which space industry lacks right now, because most of the startups fail in first 2 years or 3 years, in space industry, and the rest of the people go with a stealth mode where they try to network, try to bring in more investors, better infrastructure, and more different engineers on their ecosystems, and make it better. Space industry has very less success rate. It requires high precision and almost zero. Like they cannot make zero errors. There is no chance of giving errors in space, because here on Earth we have chances to redo things again if things go wrong. But in space we cannot give that whole idea of if things go wrong. That's the main reason why I'm like wanted to connect the engineers and space enthusiastic people, and also space industry is the future when it comes to telecommunications, internet, or even Starlink. So I believe like it needs to be more studied, and the space industry needs a lot of people,
Yeah.
not only engineers. It needs policymakers, marketing engineers, lawyers, and also people who are into art. They can also try to inspire a lot of young people in space industry.
Do you think that space industry right now needs more commercialization to grow faster
Yes,
instead
right.
of government money?
Not only instead of government money, I would say even a lot of individuals need to step up and try to pitch in their product and give a solution for the ongoing issues. For example, space medicine is really a big field where they can work on things, because certain proteins and certain microbes react differently in anti-gravity, and it's really quick. For example, paracetamol reacts so fast and aggressive in space, but
Yeah.
not here back in earth. Like it takes time and it's kind of slow, and the drugs also expire really quickly, and they need to find solutions for it. And space is really gives more opportunities to grow in medicine. Also, semiconductors is a fast growing field, but do we think, like we need better semiconductors? Yes, because to make sure that they last longer, it's better to come up with something like that. And for example, Bluetooth headphones kind of were invented in for astronauts in space, and right now we are using on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis.
Interesting. When you arrived in Lithuania
Mhm.
with no local network, how did you go from being unknown to getting visibly speaking opportunities and traction for CosmoBuzz? And what did you actually do first?
So I think it was everything started after my graduation in mechatronics engineering, because I always wanted to work in space. When I tried reach out some local startups, they were really small startups at the time, and Lithuania did not even had a big space ecosystem. So I started trying to reach out people not only in Lithuania, all across Europe and all across Asia, to what they are doing in space industry, because that's quite important. And I was super introverted. I was also struggling to even like communicate like on a day-to-day basis, even with a normal teacher or school professors. Then I was like, I shouldn't be like this, and I should start speaking up for my goals and dreams, because if I'm not taking initiative, it's gonna look bad. And I also started, inspiring a lot of people, so it became like more like a support system.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna be down, I'm gonna let them down too. It's not gonna be like, it became like more like a moment than an individual. So they were like, okay, Giri, go for it, because there is like a big gap in the industry
Mhm.
itself. Yeah, there were like few other social media initiatives like Copernical from UK, and also few other space startups who are trying similar things, but there is not like a dedicated forum to know more about
Mhm.
technical aspects in space, or bringing space to everyday people, keep like in a simple language. So that's where CosmoBuzz comes into play, to bring space for everyday people and make them understand what's going on in space. Let's talk in a layman terms, because they are people think that space is just a waste of money, or people just launching rockets for their fun and goals. No, like their everyday telecommunication is based on space industry right now.
Yeah.
And also like a lot of research is being done in space for finding answers.
Yeah. Could you please give us example, except wireless?
I mean, like a lot of techniques are being made in space industry on a day-to-day basis.
The most
The
recently.
most recently was with the war going on in Ukraine. It was really helpful for finding all those, the it was helpful in defense to find all those what's happening from space, to see which territory was occupied by which country, so that
Mhm.
the other country can
Yeah.
monitor. And it was space is also becoming like a like a
Like
good
monitoring
monitoring
our
for the
Earth. Yeah.
warfare. And as I said, like space can be a two like two-sided knife with sharp
Yeah.
edges. So every country can use it, and also data centers are trying to be they are trying to come up with data centers in space. If they achieve it, it's going to be so amazing, because the biggest problem with data centers is like the water consumption.
Yeah.
And if they learn to master the technique of supercooling in space, then it's
It
a
must.
massive
Yeah.
solution, because we don't have to rely on data centers here on Earth. So
Yeah. Actually, cool. How did you get your first high-profile guest when nobody knew who you were?
honestly, there were like a lot of rejections. But one thing what I learned was I started meeting people offline, started going for conferences, and started talking with professionals in the space industry. I started every time I go for a networking event, I try to learn what that person is doing and what they're good at, so I can I can initiate a conversation on the topic they're interested in, and that kind of brings in more personal touch. So that's how I started getting all the high profile guests, and I profiled people on my podcast. And also, like in end of the day, I'm not afraid of rejections. I go with the mentality of I have nothing to lose. The person on the other side is also human, and they also worked hard. Maybe like they have their own constraints to present in front of the media, because not only like everyone I meet, they're either so busy with their own things, or they have their own team to discuss to whether to hop in to a podcast. That's really important, to have a team once like grow a little bit. And my personal struggle was like I wasn't afraid of rejections. I started talking with people, talk, practice.
There is a big gap between, loud people, famous people, and really professional people.
It's always a mix of two. Like I try to find someone who's in the middle. That sweet spot is really important when we are trying to bring guests in a podcast, because we cannot like, yeah, there are engineers, but they're like so technical, and it's like so much for a common person to process. But there is also like celebrities in space industry who have been to space industry. For example, Katy Perry was on space, but
Yeah.
I cannot bring Katy Perry to
Yeah.
explain. But if I try to bring someone who's like so technically involved in
Yeah.
NASA, that's kind of also little bit like
No one
gets
care.
boring. Yeah, no one cares, like no one cares that that they are trying to create a mechanical part on a
Yeah.
SolidWorks software, or like a CATIA, or like some people don't even know like those softwares. And I'm like, what do I want to make sure to understand? Because even when I try to learn something, I just I keep on asking this question: what will I make? How do I make this understandable for a 5-year old and a
Yeah.
60-year-old?
Yeah.
Because this
Your
is,
mom like.
yeah, like, yeah, I just go and I cannot be explaining to my grandmother that what is exactly SpaceX or Starlink is doing. I want to explain how Wi-Fi works
Yeah.
to my grandmom, and also my, let's say, my niece or nephew who's like 5-6 years old. So I'll always keep on asking this question, that how do I make this simple? And this is where my guest comes to a play. Like there are like a lot of science communicators in the space industry, and shout out to them, because it's really hard. The hardest job is to make people understand in terms of science, politics, or anything. Like it's the hardest part is to make people understand our perspective. And if there is not disagreements or discussions, these fields don't exist. It's like more intertwined.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
so I just kind of make sure all the guests are more open-minded when they come. So I just make sure that my guests are somewhere in between.
Cool. What exactly is the CosmoBuzz business model right now? How do you find it today? And what is your plan to make it sustainable as a scale?
Today, right now, we are already we have a prototype going on the back end, and it's more like we are trying to create like a bootstrap model. But eventually we might, once the product is developed, we might go for a pre-seed or a series A. But it all really depends upon the traction of the platform itself. And space is like really narrow, not like everywhere, and it's like a small bubble, and everyone knows everyone. So what what our plan initially is to try to bring in the VCs and also the startup founders. So that's our initial business model to work on this platform, like where they can try to interact more like a LinkedIn for space industry, not like
Yeah.
something outside.
How do you promote CosmoBuzz right now?
Right now, the only thing what I do personally is like podcast. I talk with a lot of guests and a lot of people. Network is really important. There's a saying that network is your net worth from Richard Branson. Yeah, he's one of the inspiration for CosmoBus to. It's kind of, it's really important to have a proper network and get the guidance from them, because we need to know for people from inside of the space industry, and then go out and pitch it to the general public. And CosmoBus is in a phase of on a prototype, and we are trying to do some research on the market.
You've spoken at events across all the Europe. And what did you do that made conference organizers start invite you?
As I said, I start networking,
Yeah.
and some people kind of have know me by, like in person. They are like, oh, I know Giri, and Giri can, Giri can be fit, really a good fit on this topic, because that's also important when we try to talk about technical stuff or like space policies or business. And I think space industry needs more better policies in the end. And for me, it's like it's a combination of everything. And as someone who has done podcast, I might give like a little bit of insight for them, and they can give an insight for me.
Yeah.
So there should be a knowledge transfer and exchange. So that's important whenever I go to a conference, and when I'm invited for a conference, that's quite an important thing to know what we are going to present and what value we are going to give.
Tell our viewers about your the most impressive presentation.
I think it was my TEDx talk on the Wellness International School. It was my first time giving like a proper monologue, and it was like kind of nervous too, because I get nervous talking in front of kids rather than talking in front of adults. That's Kids are always curious, and it's really a hard thing to speak in front of kids than adults.
Yeah. Why? What's the
Because
difference?
needs a lot of preparation. Kids are curious,
Yeah.
and I'm also excited when I'm around kids, so I like so curious on asking questions back to back. Kids make us think more on a certain topic than adults, because sometimes adults are like, oh, it might be a little offensive or like different question. Kids don't care, they just go straight to the point.
How did you make this monologue more attractive?
Practice, I was like practicing a lot, like the TEDx team. Initially they kind of had the teachers on the school, and we were like, I think I had a rehearsal talk like 6 or 7 times, even before stepping up on the stage,
Oh my god.
so that I deliver properly. And I still had like a small piece of paper just in case if I forget. But I'm glad that I didn't look in the paper. But it was one of the hardest tasks ever.
My congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
experience. If LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow, how would you rebuild your audience from zero?
Two things. We have CosmoBuzz, join cosmobuzz.com. We talk about space. And secondly, I start from the zero, restart, go back, meet people again. Just let's say, even if the internet disappears, I'm like more of a person who likes to meet on live rather than online, because people can talk and bring in any ideas online, but the offline is like it gives more of a value based,
Yeah, for sure.
and it's also a lot of networking offline. We get to know that person how they are in real life, because online personas are different than the offline personas, because that's kind of, like, that's how life is. And uh, offline creates more healthy dialogue
Yeah.
than online.
What's something about startup growth that almost everyone believes but you think is completely wrong?
I think, like, startup growth, they want really a quick growth.
Yeah.
Lack of patience. Just don't be afraid of failures, because a lot of startups, they start failing and they like start giving up, and that's the biggest problem among the
Mhm.
startup founders. Maybe it takes 5 years, 10 years for your startup to pop off, but there's a reason why it's happening, and we learn from the mistakes rather than, throwing blame on ourselves. And in the end, they just even close the startup, like they dissolve the company. And I mean, some people create a different one, learning from mistakes, big up for them, because they found that, like, there is no solution for it. But there are some people who are like so consistent and who doesn't give up that easily. So people need to be more patient on certain things. And startups, the reason why most of the startups have high turnovers is the lack of patience from the founders
Mhm.
and the stockholders. Because one thing I learned about space industry, things takes so much time.
Yeah,
It's
for
very
sure.
slow. Even for like a small approval of sending like a CubeSat to space, it's gonna take like, on
Yeah.
total, it's gonna take 2 or 3 years to send it to space. One thing what I kind of understood was, like, space is so big, but the circle of space industry is like so small. And it's like everyone knows everyone, and some people are like always like 3 or 4 handshakes away. They
Yeah.
There's like a saying in space industry that that person is like 2 or 3 handshakes away,
Oh
like,
my God.
yeah.
Looking back, what created more opportunities for you? The product you built, the content you published, or relationship you developed?
Right now, the one thing which I kind of get is conferences. That's a great opportunity to network. And the second opportunity is like interviews like this, which I'm really grateful for, the people who are recognizing my work and trying to bring in front of the general public. Also, it improved my communication skills really significantly. So that's that. And it also created opportunity for me to learn a lot of things what's going on in the industry itself, and to communicate it back to the general public. Because a lot of people have a misconception that, okay, why is Elon Musk Starship is just blasting off, like it's gets like, why is it exploding after landing? But some of them are intentional. That kind of helped me to learn what's going on in the space industry itself. And that's that on
Okay.
opportunity.
Do
Yeah.
you have any tips for entrepreneurs or small children make a career in space industry?
I would say, just don't give up. Just stay consistent, regardless of how much rejections you face. And just, keep going. Try to talk with people, network with people. You might see some bad ones in the middle, but in the end, it's gonna be really a fruitful experience.
One of the biggest takeaways from this interview is that opportunities rarely appear before you start creating them. Whatever it's building a new network in a new country, getting access to people you admire, growing an audience, or launching a project, that common theme is taking consistent action long before the results become visible. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next episode.